Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Bryce and Ronnie Avalanche Safety Day. I'm Tom Kelly, and I'll be your host this evening. We have a great program for you, and we really appreciate all of you taking the time to be with us here today for this webinar. January 5th is an important day for brass. It's a day of tragedy, but also one that is a useful reminder for all of us on the importance of backcountry safety. Before we begin tonight, I want to recognize some of the partners who have really helped brass in its mission over the last years. Our sponsors include World Cup Supply, Sync Performance, Know Before You Go, US Ski and Snowboard, Backcountry Access, Blizzard Technica, and Nordica. We really appreciate the support that they have all provided. To kick things off this evening, I want to bring in the chair of the Brass Avalanche Safety Foundation. Cindy Berlack lost her son 8 years ago today. Since that time, she and the other family members have been committed to bringing education to folks like you to help all of you be safer out there in the sport that we so enjoy. Please join me in welcoming Cindy Berlack.
Thanks so much, Tom. It's so good to be here. Get the camera. I just want to say a few words about both Bryce and Ronnie because they were such remarkable people. I asked Jamie what he would say if he were here. He has a traditional gathering at Alta on January 5th. So he gathers Bryce's friends and some young ski racers on this night. So he sent the message that Bryce would want everybody to be safe. He was a very selfless person. He wanted to help everyone climb up the ladder and was very generous with his attention toward helping others to ski race and just being a big-hearted young man. When he was at the NORAMs in December of 2014 in Panorama, he met a young man from Croatia, a young guy who was just starting out ski racing in the elevator at the hotel. And he immediately introduced himself to this guy. And the other young man knew exactly who Bryce was because he was a rising star. The next day, Bryce skied really well and came in 15th. After his runs, he went up to the start and cheered on this young man he had met in the elevator, which meant the world to him. And this is the kind of big-hearted guy Bryce was. We miss him. We all miss him terribly. Jamie also wanted to say to everybody, it's a deadly year. Everyone needs to be aware of the snow safety, the snow dangers, and not rely on others such as coaches or companions for their knowledge, but get it yourself, especially when you're traveling. So Ronnie was our son, and this is a message from Carolyn, Steve, and me. You always knew when Ronnie was in the room. He was in his prime when he was doing stand-up comedy. It was at the heart of his persona. He loved making people laugh. He also was a game player and played with a vengeance, and always made the other people think it was fun to play with him, even if he was beating them hollow. I started having him play checkers when he was age 3. And I never compromised and let him win. He always struggled to gain a good result. But when he was about 6, his confidence built because he was beating me every game. At that time, one of Steve's big high school athletes came to visit from Burke Mountain Academy. And Ronnie challenged him to a checkers game. Ronnie beat him solidly. And the big athlete was not happy. But Ronnie just beamed and said comfortingly, "You played a good game." You can imagine how nice he was when he was age 10, around 2004, and we had our neighbor and close family friend, Bodie Miller, over, and he beat Bodie in croquet. Ronnie really schmoozed him then and was very nice. Meeting the competition was Ronnie's comfort zone, mostly competing against himself, and he was always pushing to excel. He found his home in the ski racing community, among many of you who are out there tonight. It's with pride that Brass brings you this program that's designed to supply the information that Ronnie and Bryce were missing. It's their legacy to keep others safe. So please listen carefully and pursue snow safety education further after this program. Thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you out there skiing.
Thank you very much, Cindy, and thank you especially for all of the energy that you've put into this in Bryce and Ronnie's name, and to all of the family members. We have reached so many people. Over 1 million people have been reached by Brass's programs over the last 5 or 6 years. And for all of you on the call tonight, it's just fun to go and scroll down through the names. There's some people that we see frequently, and we also see some new names in there tonight. And we thank you all for being with us here this evening. We have one other special significant remembrance tonight. We lost another great member of the Brass family this past summer. And to say a few words about Hillary Nelson, it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Berlack. Steve?
Thank you, Tom. Clearly, January 5th and this event is an event to memorialize and remember Bryce and Ronnie. But it's really should be noted that the Brass community was shaken to the core, as was the entire ski mountaineering world, with the loss of Hillary Nelson this past September. Nelson was skiing down the 8,000 meter peak Munaslu in Nepal when she triggered an avalanche, which led to a 6,000 foot fall down the mountain. Hillary, just last winter, was part of a superlative Brass webinar discussing snow safety protocols for big mountain ski mountaineering. It's a program that we recorded. You can watch it on our website. She did it with Wendy Fisher, another exceptional woman in extreme skiing and ski mountaineering. Nelson was widely regarded as the top ski mountaineer in the world, regardless of gender. And when the absolute best and most accomplished succumb to the ever-changing challenges of the mountains, it serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of snow safety education and planning for all who enjoy off-piste activities. Hillary was a mother of 2. Our hearts and prayers go out to her family and her close friends. Know before you go, get educated, and let's be safe out there. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much, Steve. And just today, I went back and looked on the Brass YouTube channel and watched that video again from the webinar we did last March with Wendy Fisher and Hillary Nelson. I urge all of you to do that. These are 2 amazing individuals. They were great, great friends, and they talked about the risks. They talked about the accomplishments too that they had found in their lives. So go back and take a look at that if you can. And we just want to remember not just Bryce and Ronnie tonight, but also Hillary. Moving on now to our program, it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists here tonight to present Get the Global Forecast. And one of the most important things in going out there in the backcountry is making sure that you have the forecast. We have 2 amazing presenters here tonight. Lindsay Mann is a backcountry guide, a mountain guide, an alpine ski coach, and she's been a part of the Brass family for 3 to 4 years right now. She's really the backbone of our education. We really appreciate all the work that she has done. I also will add, she is also a new mom. So Lindsay, we appreciate all you do, especially when you're running around the house taking care of the little one. Dale Atkins has worked with Brass for a number of years, and he's come on board to help us with some of our education programs this year. He has over 40 years of background in avalanche and snow safety, former president of the American Avalanche Association, worked for many years with RECO, and he brings another great perspective. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dale and Lindsay to take you through our educational program tonight. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks to the Brass Foundation for inviting us to present tonight. Like Tom said, we are here tonight to give you more tools and resources on the importance of getting the avalanche forecast or bulletin, as well as giving you just some tips and tools and reminders on what information we want to pull out from these avalanche forecasts so that we end the day ultimately coming home to all of our loved ones. Like Steve said, that's an important reminder of tonight, and tonight just represents and gives us a moment to reflect and remember on all the people that we may have lost in the mountains, but also is a good reminder of doing our best to come home each and every day. So we do really appreciate you being here. And again, this is just such an important thing for us to think about as competitive snow sport athletes, coaches, and enthusiasts. The mountains are our training grounds. It's where we enjoy recreating and spending time. And avalanches are an objective hazard of spending time in this mountains. So whatever we can do to refresh our knowledge so that, again, we can come home at the end of every day. Just a few statistics that I think are pretty striking when we look at them is the average fatalities for the US per season. This includes inbounds and out of bounds fatalities due to avalanches is about 27 per year. When you look at this statistic for Europe, it's about 100 fatalities per year or per season. One of the reasons I think that is just due to some cultural differences. It's also easier to access avalanche terrain. And the intersection between ski area boundaries and out of bounds, so on and off piste, does become a bit blurrier when you go to Europe and when you travel to other parts of the world. Dale is going to speak more about that. And ultimately, we hope that you leave our section of the talk with a bit more tools to figure out where can you get some of this information. But again, just wanted to highlight this statistic because I think it is important. As far as where we can get the avalanche forecasts, there are some subtle differences in these websites that, in all honesty, took me way too long to figure out that it wasn't a typo. So for the US, and I'm sure that most of you have heard this, especially if you've taken an avalanche presentation and a Brass 101, is for the US is that avalanche.org. For Canada, it's avalanche.ca. And for Europe, it is avalanches. So just plural of the US version, .org. So when we go to this avalanche.org, you're going to see all these different colors. This screenshot was taken from just a couple days ago. These are all the forecasting sites in the Western US. What's not pictured here is the forecasting centers in Alaska. And there are forecasting zones in the East Coast, albeit small. Other things that I just want to highlight that avalanche.org does a great job of is their education section. If you click on that and you scroll down in it, there's a tool called the Avalanche Encyclopedia. This gets into great detail, but also is very user-friendly as to what do some of the terms mean, and is a great resource if you're newer to reading the forecast. And even as an expert myself, I use this tool several times throughout the season because it does a really good job of just explaining what it can mean. And so it can really just enhance that avalanche forecast for you. Another tool that is important, I think, to highlight on this is that accidents tab. If you go into that, you're going to get to see and read about accidents all over the US, inbounds, out of bounds, snowmobile, ski. And again, just reading about them can be a great way for us to learn something. And maybe it's that little voice in the back of your head that's saying, I read something similar. I feel like I'm starting to be in a similar situation. And so maybe I need to change something so I don't end up being the one that we're reading about in that avalanche accidents section. Once we click on that forecasting zone, just a couple key things that we really want to reiterate and highlight when we are reading the forecast is what is the date? How current is that avalanche forecast? You can see most avalanche forecasting centers now too, they're going to tell you when that forecast expires. And that's also just as important. And then there's typically now we're seeing that the avalanche forecasters, the experts out there are giving us some sort of bottom line. What is the big bold headline that they want us to walk away from reading this with if you were to not read any further? With that being said, there's a lot of really great information that we want you to make sure that you're looking at as you scroll down that page. So looking just beyond those colors, looking beyond that bottom line. And this is the Sawtooth Avalanche Center. This is their forecast from 2 days ago. And I thought this actually was just so fitting because they're telling us the avalanche problem. They're going to tell us where it's located, how likely it is to be triggered, and when it's triggered. But then in this discussion section for this day, they just really clearly laid out what most forecast centers are doing in this section. They're telling us what is the problem, where is it located, how can you recognize it, and then how can you manage it. So that's why it's so important to read the entire forecast when you are getting it in English. Dale is going to hit upon, some of the other forecasting sites around the world. And we do recognize that not always, if you're traveling around the world, are you able to get the forecast in English. But the more comfortable you can get at reading the forecasts when we do have it in English, it's going to just really highlight these section. And so then if you are in a situation where you are only getting the graphics, it is going to put more meaning to it. And then one other thing that I want to highlight on this page here is right up by avalanche problem number 1. You see that it's got this gray circle with the eye in it. If this were a live site, I could scroll over that. And that's also going to give me more information on what do they mean by persistent slab? What do I need to know about avalanche problems? So there's a lot of hidden tools within these avalanche forecasts that can really help you out and help keep you out of danger. And before I hand it over to Dale to talk about the avalanche danger scale and resources throughout the world, I do just want to remind you, and Dale may remind you of this as well, because it's that important, is that if you're not comfortable with this, or if you're just learning the skills, the answer that we go back to is always terrain. So if you don't think you can manage the problem, if you're newer to reading the forecast, if you're traveling with athletes over to Europe, the answer is always that we do have the choice whether or not we go in and out of avalanche terrain. So staying on slopes that are below 30 degrees and avoiding them, and being aware of what's above us. So making sure that there's also not avalanche terrain above us is a great way to manage it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dale.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. Boy, and thank you everybody who's come out tonight to listen in and see our presentation. And the avalanche forecast is so important. And this really, I recognized this a bunch of years ago when a fellow researcher, Ian McCammon, and myself, we surveyed a large cohort of avalanche professionals and recreationalists. And something that surprised Ian and me was that the avalanche professionals, the people that we thought, they know this stuff and they're using the forecast, they're building the forecast, but they look at the forecast almost every single day. So if the forecast is that important for the professionals to use, it's just as important for us as recreationalists to use too. So Lindsay, thanks for the quick introduction about the forecast and the reasons and what to look for. But I want to touch a little bit more about the danger scale and also a little bit about the avalanche problems. So as you look at this, you can see with the North American danger scale, that's 5 levels in the different colors. But please, as Lindsay said, always go beyond just the color and the number. Read the forecast. And as you look over to the right, you'll see that most of the fatalities and accidents actually happen when the danger is moderate to considerable. And considerable, even though it's in the middle of the scale, is really a dangerous time. The problem is it's also in the skiing's pretty good too. But just always remember, no matter where you go, when the danger is considerable, that's a very scary time to be in the backcountry, out of an area, or off piste. Next one, please, Lindsay. And no matter where you go, the danger scale is pretty much universal. There's a little differences in the wording between countries and languages, but we use the same 5 levels and we use the same colors no matter where you go in the world. The danger, even though we present it on this ordinal scale of 1 to 5, what's really important to realize is that the avalanche danger increases exponentially. So as you go up one step in danger, the probability of you triggering an avalanche rises dramatically. And this is really important to keep in mind. And if you look at this closely, this is from the Swiss, and you'll actually see some minus and in pluses. And just this year, they're starting to try out a refined danger scale with a minus side, a neutral side, and a positive side, because the danger isn't just a discrete step. It's a trend over time. So we'll have to see how this goes in Switzerland, but I think they're on to something. Let's go to the next one. So when I say the danger is exponential, well, here's a metaphor, and it has to do with traffic. And it doesn't mean that driving is more dangerous than avalanches. It's what I mean is that it's all about the number of lanes of traffic. So if the danger is rated at low, think of that as you're just trying to get across a 2-lane road. Not a big deal, not a lot of hazard. You can get across. As the danger goes to moderate, let's say that now the lanes double. So now it's a 4-lane road across a highway. Well, that's starting to get probably pretty sporty to get across 4 lanes of traffic. When the danger gets to considerable, that's the equivalent of trying to get across 8 lanes of traffic. And that's beyond spicy and sporty. That's getting pretty scary. And that's why I said earlier, considerable danger is really a scary time in the backcountry. And when you get to high danger, that's the equivalent to 16 lanes of traffic. So when you see that danger increase up a step, it's actually increasing dramatically more. So avalanche problems, and Lindsay gave a quick introduction, and I'm just hitting some of the key ones here. And fortunately, when it comes to the type of avalanches, we use pretty much the same ones, even though we have 9 here and in the States, 5 in Europe. New Zealand uses the same ones we use here in North America. But the avalanche problems are so important. And in Lindsay's forecast that she showed, it's not just the type of avalanche, but it's the location and likelihood and the potential size. And when you use the danger rating is all about the likelihood of triggering an avalanche. The avalanche problem gives you more detail. And in fact, why looking at the avalanche problems is important is because there's much less uncertainty about the type of the avalanche problem you might face out there in the backcountry than the uncertainty for the likelihood of triggering an avalanche. So avalanche problems are a really important piece of the puzzle. And just a couple of quick things here about North America versus Europe for in area and out of area. Here in North America, when you're inside of the ski area, all of that terrain is managed, and the ski patrols do a phenomenal job to manage that terrain, but they can't keep every square meter of that snow safe, but they do a really phenomenal job to make for a safe and fun skiing experience inside of the ski area. When you leave the boundary, you're going into the backcountry. Now let's compare that to Europe in the next slide. And when you look at this trail map from Zermatt, what's important to realize is the difference between on-piste and off-piste. And in Europe, on-piste are the marked runs. And it's only the marked runs that are managed. If you're not on a marked run, you're off-piste and you're in terrain that likely is not being managed from a snow safety perspective. So being off-piste in Europe, you might be right next to a marked trail and a groomed run, but you're literally going into backcountry conditions. And let's take a look in the next slide. As you look at these two pictures from Europe, and I won't say where to protect the guilty, but you can see in the left-hand photo, the groomed run in the upper right corner. And then there's a whole lot of tracks on that slope where there's also an avalanche. But that's the difference between on-piste, the groomed marked runs, and off-piste. And in the right-hand photo, boy, this was a tragic accident. It caught 2 skiers. It killed one, and they're just 10 meters away from the piste, from the on-piste area where all those people are standing. So literally going off-piste is just is less than a meter of distance between a safe area and a potentially unsafe terrain. Let's go to the next one. There's lots of signage, and if you're here in the States and Canada, keep your eyes peeled for this. And if you're leaving the ski area boundary in the US and many places in Canada now, you're going through exit points to leave the ski area. Now, that's a bit different than what you might see. It's very different than what you'd see in Europe, as we'll go to the next one. But even though in Europe we don't have the boundary ropes and the fencing is like we do here in the States, but they do have the signs, and the signs are up. So just become familiar, and more important, look for these signs of danger signs of avalanches and lavinin. And fortunately, often the signs are in English these days as well. I'll just go to another picture slide. Something that you'll see in Europe that you don't see here in the States, but on the big trail map signs, on those signboards, they'll often have the avalanche danger rating for the day. And if the danger gets to considerable or above, they'll have a flashing amber or orange light, just to let you know that the danger is scary out there. So let's go 2 more slides. Couple more resources where to get information. There's 2 great apps you can use. For North America, Avalanche Forecast, and it's really a good one to get and it's available both on Mac for iOS as well as Google Play and for Android phones. But great app. And in Europe, look for Snow Safe, and it has the link to all of the European avalanche forecast centers and their daily forecast. These are great tools to use to get the information, get the forecast. And I'm going to turn it back to Lindsay.
Thanks, Dale. So a couple other resources that we really wanted to highlight, and a big thanks to Tom Kelly for working so hard to get this up on the Brass website, is for years we sat in these presentations and then talking to different people and different athletes. They said, we're trying to get the forecast because they'd heard that so much, but how do we get it when we are outside of the US? And so thanks to Tom and Dale, we have up on the Brass website. So if you go to brassavalanche.org and you click on the forecast header, you can just scroll down and there's going to be hot links to Avalanche Canada, the Avalanche Forecasting Center in Australia, Japan, South America, New Zealand, and Europe as well. So we have all of these resources up there. So if you do find yourself traveling overseas, please go to the Brass website, click on forecasts, read about the avalanche forecast in that area. And please, if you have any feedback too, we'd love to hear it. Do know that there are some forecasting sites such as South America that they're not issuing a daily forecast necessarily. So it is something that you do want to check out ahead of time. You always have the option, if you're traveling to different parts of the world, to hire a guide. That can also be a great resource and way to access the experts. And again, thank you for listening to this. And yeah, hopefully too, this has been a good refresher for all of you and has highlighted some more resources that we haven't always been able to highlight in the past. And some of these forecasters too, to point out, are newer forecasts. So it is cool that this is expanding around the world and everyone's working hard to talk to each other. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tom, unless Dale has anything else to add.
I'm good. Take it away, Tom.
Great. Thank you very much, Dale and Lindsay. If anyone has any questions, if you want to pop them into the chat real quickly, we'll get those answered. I just want to throw out one, and this is more just an occurrence that was interesting to me. Dale, I'll go to you on this. When you look at the avalanche danger scale, we had a situation here in Utah earlier this week where the entire compass rose was completely black. And you look at that, and that is so rare to see, but how rare is that? And what causes a situation like that the whole compass rose would be black?
Yeah, it's exceptional to see extreme danger. I mean, that doesn't happen even every winter. Maybe every 2 or 3 winters, we might see the danger get to extreme. And it happens when we have a significant weak layer in the snowpack. In early season, it's generally that lower half of the snowpack. And then in Utah, you guys swiped all our snow for Colorado, but you guys got so much snow and it fell on a significant weak layer, persistent weak layer. And that storm snow just made the danger go off the charts, so to speak, on all aspects and all elevations. So really, that was exceptionally dangerous time.
Yeah, it was just really interesting to see. Well, Lindsay and Dale, we want to thank you very much for sharing this information tonight. And we invite everyone to go to the Brass website where you can get all of this information on forecasts. If you're planning a trip to Europe, as I am next week, that's a place you can go and develop out the links so that when you go there, you can be safe. So Dale and Lindsay, thank you very much. And we're going to move on now to the next part of our program here. We thank everybody for hanging with us here this evening. We have 2 amazing athlete guests with us here this evening. Both of them are very accomplished as athletes, and both of them also very knowledgeable about the backcountry. First of all, I want to welcome a longtime member of the U.S. Alpine Ski Team, Anna Marno. Anna came out of Steamboat Springs. She is a national champion in the Super G, also won a NORAM Cup title in the Super G event. And also big welcome to Caite Zeliff. Caite is a native of New Hampshire. She found her way to Jackson Hole some years ago and won the debut Queens of Corbetts contest, which is a phenomenal free ride contest up in Jackson. And I'm going to bring them both onto the screen. Bear with me for just a second, folks, if you will. Okay, we got Anna and okay, got them all on the screen. Ladies, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Just to kind of
Thanks for
set the
having us,
stage,
Tom.
Caite, first of all, where are you coming to us from tonight?
I'm in Jackson right now.
And how's the snow in Jackson?
It's pretty good. We've had a good start. December was incredible. We're having a little down cycle. I think Utah's taking our snow too. So,
Well, Anna, what do you say about that? Are you coming to us from Salt Lake City tonight?
Yeah, I'm in Salt Lake. I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not.
no, you guys deserve it. Take it
It's been
away.
great.
We're going to talk a little bit to start with about your background as athletes, how you got started in the sport. Anna, I'm going to start with you. How did you get your start in alpine ski racing, and what did that career with the U.S. ski team bring to you?
Yeah, let's see. I grew up ski racing. My dad was a ski racer, so it's kind of an easy entry for me. I actually grew up in southern Wyoming at a teeny tiny little ski area, and moved to Steamboat to get into it a little bit more, and then qualified for the national team. And I mean, it's brought me, I could say, just about anything in my life could probably be tied back to skiing in my racing career, whether it's friends or family or the things that I love to do or what I do in my free time, and my motivation. So yeah, I mean, it's a special sport, and being able to leave a sport and also continue to grow into a new kind of portion of it is really special. So
Well, thank you very much, Anna. And Caite, you also grew up a ski racer, but a knee injury caused you to say, hey, I'm going to move out west. Tell us a little bit about your start, and how did you make that transition from New Hampshire out to Jackson?
Yeah, I grew up in New Hampshire and same idea, being in a ski town, you kind of just inevitably find yourself in a race course and fell in love with it. And it was all I knew. And it also, like similar to what Anna said, it brought me all over the world. It taught me about independence and travel and work ethic and things that I would not maybe have learned otherwise. And then I think it was a pretty obvious transition for me. I think I was ready for the next chapter, and that knee injury when I was ski racing in college kind of, I would say, was the turning point. And I had a good friend who had a cousin in Jackson, and it seemed like the right call. And I didn't know anybody, and I'd never been to Jackson before. I had gone out west to go train in Colorado when I was younger, ski racing. And yeah, it was kind of like the Wild West in my eyes and an opportunity for something new. And so found myself in Jackson and immediately fell in love with a different style of skiing. And luckily a ski racing background served me really well. So.
And you started the whole thing out by hucking yourself into Corbett's. What was with that?
That was a kind of a turning of events. I was actually competing. I moved to Jackson not necessarily wanting to be a professional skier. Maybe that was in the back of my mind, but they came out with this competition, and I had some friends kind of urge me to write and try to get in. It was like, again, the first year. So they were looking for athletes, and I was a local kid, and I actually I'd never hit Corbett's before. I'd never really had any interest in hitting Corbett's. And then, yeah, had some good friends that were really pushing me to show my skills. And after I won that comp, my life changed overnight. And so I'm pretty glad I did it. It put me on a path that I otherwise may not have found.
Well, it's a crazy thing, but congratulations to you. Both of you are similar ages to Bryce and Ronnie. And Anna, I want to go to you first. Did you know Bryce or Ronnie when you were a ski racer?
Yeah, I did. I was a couple years older than them, but they were definitely teammates. I remember, let's see, my fondest memories of the two of them were probably Bryce being in the gym and literally meeting everyone, and Ronnie also being in the gym and like just asking anyone and everyone if they would go on a bike ride with him. They were wonderful. Yeah, January 5th is definitely always a day and day to remember your teammates, and also just look at the mountains and remember to love and respect them at the same time.
Yeah, memories are a great thing. Caite, you know, you too, you knew Ronnie.
I knew Ronnie, yeah. I think just growing up in New Hampshire and kind of same vibes that everyone said. Just I have a distinct memory when we were at US Nationals out west. Like, I don't know how old we were, but everyone was trying to be, we were at that age where everyone was trying to be really cool. And I remember Ronnie like not having an issue being goofy and like so excited about being at nationals and so proud and filled with joy. And I think, yeah, being a angsty 17-year-old or whatever we were, you're just like trying to be cool and not show excitement at all. And I think now that I look back on those memories, I kind of appreciate what stoke he brought all the time. And that's something that, yeah, like Anna was saying, I think respecting the mountains and understanding the mountains. My first year when I moved to Jackson, my first year ever here, I was in the lift line, and I remember hearing about Ronnie and Bryce. And at that point, I didn't know what a beacon was. I had never backcountry skied before, and obviously you never want a tragedy to happen, but I think it really was eye-opening for me as a young East Coast kid to the dangers that do exist out there that unfortunately being on the East Coast you just aren't aware of. So yeah, super impressed by this and what you guys are bringing to the community.
You know, I'm going to kind of build on that a little bit. Anna, I'll go back to you first on this. But if you take yourself back to the time that you're in your teens, you're alpine ski racers, how much knowledge did you have about safety in the backcountry? I know that both of you have it now, but Anna, going back to your days in your early days of racing, did you have any knowledge of what was out there in the backcountry?
Some. I was pretty lucky that my parents backcountry skied. Dale is actually a longtime family friend of ours, so I've been a little bit involved in that community since I was young. But man, the world it's one of those the more you know, the less you know kind of scenarios. And I remember, you know, when I quit ski racing and moved to Utah and saw the mountains in a little bit different perspective, just wanting to be able to see everything and do everything. And I think it's a unique scenario, but probably closer to most people on this call, where the thing holding you back isn't your skiing or athletic ability or anything physical. It's literally just not knowing. And you know, most people that get into backcountry skiing, it's like you see a ski movie and you're like, wow, I wish I could ski a mountain like that. Whereas, you know, maybe Kate or me or quite a few people on this call would be like, I think I could ski that, but like I don't know how to do it safely. And so that was always kind of the motivation for me to learn more about snow safety and avalanche awareness. And
Katie, you alluded to this a minute ago, but what was the trigger for you to learn about this new place I'm skiing in the backcountry?
Yeah, to be honest, I think learning about how it doesn't matter how good of a skier you are, avalanches don't care. And yeah, unfortunately, Ronnie and Bryce's accident was very eye-opening in that way. And then I think luckily I was surrounded by a group of people here who really told me it was an important skill to polish and to put time and energy into. And I definitely learned the hard way. I have had my run-ins, and it's something that I will continue to work on day in, day out, because it does keep you alive and keeps you coming home. So yeah, coming from the East Coast, I didn't know much, but it's something that I feel like you can't learn enough about, and I take very seriously at this point.
And in the last couple of years, you've done a lot of work with Utah Avalanche Center. You're on the schedule to do some educational sessions with them. Tell us a little bit more about your interest in spreading the word about avalanche safety.
I mean, I guess part of me would say it's a little bit selfish, in a way. I love teaching and I love skiing, and I think one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it. And so that was kind of my draw into initially taking my avalanche classes, and then I did a Pro 1, and then have been working a little bit more and more with the Utah Avalanche Center I have audited a couple youth classes. And so yeah, I think for me it's a bit of wanting to continue my own learning, but also getting to be involved in the community, and being able to use my experiences to help whoever wants to either enjoy the backcountry and also learn more and more about the mountains that we're in.
Anna, have you
What are
developed
doing
some, Anna, have you developed some favorite lines that you like up in the backcountry here in Utah you might share?
Gosh, everything. Utah is I mean, and I spend a lot of time in Jackson and the Tetons too, because my family's up there. But I think one of my favorite parts about being in Salt Lake is that it's pretty accessible, and the more time I spend here, the more I actually realize that oftentimes it's not the big, huge, crazy lines that are my favorite. It's the ones that I just know I can go walk up to after work or before work and enjoy some time, and know that, you know, even those days where the whole rose is red and it's a little bit scary, it's really empowering to know that there's still places that you can go enjoy the mountains and be safe, because you've done your time working and learning the terrain, and you know, staying out of avalanche terrain on those days is one of the coolest things.
Katie, how about you? Any recommendations up there in Teton country?
Oh man, I have found that just going outside the gates in Jackson, it can still be dangerous. I think understanding that being at a ski area and leaving the gates is, yeah, a whole new game. But there's Cody Peak and just unlimited access right outside the gates that I've really come to enjoy. So plenty out there.
Cool. Want to thank both of you for joining us tonight. Just one last question for each of you. Any advice that you would give to the people on the call tonight as something that they should do from this call tonight, which is an awareness builder, and what their next step would be? Anna, you can kick it off.
I would say the easiest thing is, you know, check your local avalanche centers and your local education places. And there's so many resources right now that are awesome. And then beyond that, find someone to mentor you if you can. Stay out of avalanche terrain when you're still learning. And I always say, like, the best thing to do is just get out in the mountains as much as you can, because the more familiar you are with the snow and the terrain and the place that you live. I think that's the best way to stay safe and to continue learning.
Yeah, it's amazing being out there. Caite, wrap it up. Any advice for everybody on the call today as to their next steps?
I think practice, like I find it really fun to practice beacon drills and transceiver drills and digging pits and familiarizing yourself. And I would say if you're in a place that has these resources, to follow it all year long, even if you're skiing or not skiing, just each day check that forecast and make a habit of it, because trends are really important. And you can learn a lot just by, even if you're not out in the snow, just paying attention.
Great. Hannah, Caite, thank you so much for joining us here tonight and for all that you do, and we'll be watching for you. Thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Caite, Zeliff, Anna, Marno, appreciate having them here today. We're going to move on to the final part of our program. A few announcements before we do. I want to first of all give a shout out to all of the folks today who have helped us with Bryce and Ronnie Avalanche Safety Day by making a donation to the Bryce Avalanche Safety Foundation. There's a QR code on your screen. You can just take your phone out right now and you can hold it up to that, and that'll take you to our donation page. And whether you give $25, $100, or $500, whatever it is, all of it goes directly back to helping Brass in the programs that it's putting forward to bring this message to others. And it is so gratifying to all of us at Brass to see the impact that we actually are having. Athletes today know more about avalanche safety than they did a few years ago. And that's very gratifying to us, but it doesn't happen unless you get out your phones, take a picture of that QR code, and drop us just a couple of dollars tonight to help us with all of our work. I want to now introduce the film Off-Piste. Many of you have seen this before. This came out 4 years ago, produced by Brass together with the Utah Avalanche Center. This is a very poignant recreation of the accident that happened 8 years ago today in Solden, Austria. It's an emotional piece, it's gripping, but it is very, very real. Please sit back now and take in this very important video, Off-Piste.
Ronnie! You guys see him up there? Guys, what should we do? Start digging!
Are they wearing beacons?
No beacons.
Dispatch, possible 2 avalanche victims buried. I see something. Is this one of your friends?
Yeah, that's Bryce.
No pulse. Starting CPR. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 23, 24, 5, 6, 7, 8. Lift on 3. 1, 2, 3. Are you sure there were only 2?
Yeah, there's two.
There's 2. Okay, we're gonna find him.
Ronnie!
Not breathing, no pulse. Starting CPR.
Nature can turn deadly in a matter of seconds.
It's hard to believe that such a tragedy could happen.
The accident has left many in the skiing world in shock.
Tragic news tonight as 2 elite skiers training for a spot on the U.S. Olympic team are killed in an avalanche.
Rescue crews from Solden were on the scene immediately with multiple helicopters.
Our thoughts and prayers are with those who are apparently lost in this specific incident.
Who are you? I'm Bryce, Astle. How does the gangster chains play into effect in your slalom skiing? Pretty aerodynamic.
Happy
birthday to you.
I was shattered. And I know everyone around me was too, and can't even possibly imagine what it was like for the families.
Losing Bryce and Ronnie was a huge hit to the U.S. team. They're the next generation. These 2 guys were the best in their disciplines. Bryce in slalom, Ronnie in downhill and Super G. They were the next up-and-comers. They could be the guys competing in the Olympics.
This is the famous smile because he had just won U.S. Nationals Juniors.
He always had my back, and it makes you appreciate it more now that he's not here, you know? Bryce was such an important part of my life, and after we lost him, it was a pretty easy decision for my wife and I to name our son Bryce. He lived for every moment. He would get done training and he would go out and he would ski.
And this is a card that we made up at the time we lost the boys, and it has Bryce, so amazing on skis, and Ronnie in his element going 70 miles an hour through the air. He was kind, and he was grounded.
Ronnie, he was always just a jokester. He wasn't afraid of the World Cup vet. He would just always speak his mind to me, and I love that about him, you know?
Watching him laughing just made me think, wow, I have the best brother ever.
He was a good teammate, he was a good friend, a good son, and we had a lot of fun together.
January 1st, 2015, I took Bryce to the airport. He was going to hook up with Ronnie Berlack and the rest of the U.S. ski team. They were going to Europe to train for Europa Cup.
We got to Solden, and it had just snowed a lot.
Obviously, there's no training because there's so much snow. So we sent everyone out to go ski around and have some fun.
Just seeing snow that's untouched and being like, this is a dream come true.
We were having an amazing time.
We could see the bottom of the valley, we could see the road, so we started skiing.
I just remember skiing across this face, and all of a sudden, I just heard cracking.
Everything underneath me started moving.
I saw Bryce, and I heard him say, oh shit. I never even saw Ronnie. We stood there, and we watched them go. Nothing made any sense. Then it just instinct took over, and there were people who had skied down right before us who saw everything and pulled out their transceivers.
Are they wearing beacons? No beacons. No avalanche equipment.
I need shovels.
That was when I realized how stupid we were being.
Okay, does anybody have a probe?
We're at the bottom of Solden 1. We need helicopter, 2 more patrollers, hasty team, and AED.
Probably took 15 minutes for helicopters to come in.
I was pretty aware that it had been too long. The first thing that appeared was Bryce's boots sticking up out of the snow. He was upside down. His boot was 6 feet from the surface. Came across Ronnie a few minutes later.
Ronnie, we got him.
Did you get him out of the hole?
That was an image that I'll never forget.
The concept of riding up a lift, skiing on a trail, and we're in danger, that did not exist in any of our heads.
The coaches and the boys did not receive any orientation or any training regarding the dangers of skiing in Europe versus skiing in North America.
None of the young men in that group knew the difference between on and off-piste. Off-piste in the United States is defined as out of bounds, going through the gate, going under the rope. That's not what the rules are in Europe. When you are off the groomer, you are off-piste.
In Solden, the day before the avalanche that killed Bryce and Ronnie, there had been
heavy snowfall and strong winds. What that did is it put a lot of weight on top of the snowpack, which was fragile. Once these skiers got onto that slope, it couldn't support the additional weight. That weak layer fractured over a wide area, and that slab came crashing down. It produced debris that weighed almost 7 million pounds, the same as almost 10 747s.
It takes all of 20 minutes to learn and to be educated.
You want to make sure you're prepared. There are 5 points that are always really good to remember. You want to get the gear, get the training, get the forecast, get the picture, and get out of harm's way.
First, you need the gear. Going in the backcountry, you need a beacon, a probe, and a shovel. And unfortunately, that day in Solon, the boys did not have that.
Ronnie!
I would have done anything for rescue gear, especially a shovel.
You can always increase your chances of being surgical if you're unlucky enough to be caught in an avalanche by having reflectors in your equipment and clothing.
Getting the gear is useless if you don't know how to use it. You've got to get the training. Take an avalanche class.
If we would have taken just one class, we would have known not to ski down that terrain in the first place.
One key thing you're going to learn in every avalanche class is that you have to check the forecast every time you ride.
None of us checked the forecast that morning. It would have taken just 2 minutes on the gondola ride, and none of this would have happened.
So when you're out on the snow, you gotta get the picture. And what does that mean? That means pay attention. Are you seeing recent avalanches? That's by far the most important clue. That's like Mother Nature screaming in your ear.
If we had known it wasn't controlled, we 100% would not have been there.
Finally, get out of harm's way. What that means is only one person is riding the slope at a time.
We were breaking one of the simplest rules. In some ways, it's a miracle that all 6 of us didn't die.
Once you get to the bottom, you need to get out of the way. That way, if somebody else in your group triggers an avalanche, you won't be caught.
These 5 simple steps everyone should know about, and everybody should be trained in. Coaches, parents, athletes, administrators of the program.
Everything that we did could have easily been prevented. I wish I could say that I couldn't have done anything to save their lives. That's just not true.
Anytime you have a major accident like this, it causes a ton of introspective thought. We realized that we really needed to look at it from the top down, bottom up. How can we make sure everybody's more educated to avert and reduce the chance of anything like this ever happening again?
That's why we at Brass are creating avalanche education specifically for coaches and athletes. We're also creating snow safety policies to be followed by ski racing groups.
Ski racing is definitely a dangerous sport. But what we're going down is a really highly regulated area. You have all the fencing, you have the snow prep, you have all these things that are out there to keep you safe. When you get out there in the backcountry, there's none of those luxuries.
For the people who assume that just because they know how to ski terrain or they know how to rip down a mountain because they ski downhill, it's a very different beast.
Don't let this happen to you and your family. Get educated, get out there, so we can keep skiing for Bryce and Ronnie, so their legacies live on.
A very important educational piece, a tragedy 8 years ago, and we're still learning from it today. Thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. We apologize, we did not have the chat open for questions, but we did have a few in the Q&A, and you're welcome to put a few in there. But I'd like to call on Dale Atkins to answer one question that was posed to us, to comment a little bit on the inbounds avalanche at Lech in Austria just a week or 10 days ago that took 10 people down with it, but fortunately all of them survived. Dale, do you have any insights into that you can share with the group?
Yeah, a little bit that I can add. That was Christmas afternoon, I believe, and fairly late in the day. And about that accident, the avalanche actually released off of Tritkov Peak and came down onto a groomed run, onto one of the marked piste, and caught, the 10 skiers. And that's a situation that's much more common in Europe. than we have here in the US and in Canada. Because the terrain is so steep at many of the European resorts, it's not that uncommon to have an avalanche start outside of the ski area and then fall into the ski area and catch skiers on the groomed runs. Just a couple other things about it. The ski area sounds like a fantastic response. That upwards of 200 rescuers that were working it, that searched well into the night, and 4 people were injured and 1 seriously. And so that's quite remarkable that basically everyone walked away. But it just highlights the challenges of trying to manage snow and avalanches and the uncertainty that we face.
Yeah, it just was so amazing to see that all 10 of them were accounted for. Just one last follow-up on this. I don't know if others do this. I do it occasionally, but is there a rationale to wearing your transceiver when you're skiing at a resort?
Yes. As I said earlier tonight, the ski areas, the patrols do a phenomenal job to keep the terrain as safe as they can, but they can't guarantee complete safety. So on those stormy days, like we're having across the West right now, those are good days to wear your transceiver, even when you're in area or have clothing that has reco reflectors, because those things make you searchable, and that can be the difference between life and death. As Anna said, I've known her since she was quite young. Our kids skied together at times, and my kids often skied with transceivers around their necks because I know where they go. And because, boy, we just can't guarantee the complete safety of all the guests at the ski areas. The ski areas try.
Well, Dale, thank you very much for your counsel. And thanks to all of you for joining us here tonight. I want to just do a few more shout outs before we leave to our sponsors. A big thanks to World Cup Supply, Sync Performance, Know Before You Go, US Ski and Snowboard, Backcountry Access, Blizzard, Technica, and Nordica. These are all companies that have been very helpful in supporting Brass. And we hope that you can support Brass as well. There's the QR code again, and you can take your phone and just point it up to the screen. A couple of easy clicks, and you can donate to help support all that we do here at Brass Avalanche. It's been great to have all of you with us here tonight. If you have friends who couldn't make it tonight, and actually we do have a quick question. What is a transceiver, from Patty Bottomley? Thank you for that. Dale, I'm going to quickly go back to you, and if you could just give a quick introduction to what a transceiver is.
Sure. An avalanche transceiver is basically a radio-like device that sends a signal that that's broadcast out, no more than about 100 meters at most. But the idea is that if you're buried in the avalanche, your friends, your companions can switch their transceivers to receive, and they can home in on the signal and zero in right to the spot that you're underneath the snow. Now, an avalanche transceiver gets you to the spot, but you use a probe pole to confirm the spot, and you have to have a shovel to dig someone out.
Okay, Patty, thank you very much for that question. With that, we are going to wrap it up for the evening. We appreciate all of you being with us here tonight. We will have a video copy of this available at brassavalanche.org tomorrow on Friday. So if you want to pass that on to friends, and we would love to get them on our email list so we can invite them to future webinars that we have. Thanks to all of you for joining us here tonight and for your interest in avalanche safety. And our remembrance goes out to Bryce and Ronnie, 2 great young men, but in their memory, let's make sure that all of us stay safe. Have a good night, everyone.